Hello, my name is Napat and I'm representing my team to present our research project findings. Our project's name is REACH, which stands for Resilient Empowerment and Advocacy in Women's and Children's Health Research, and Thailand is one of the 3 international sites. It's a qualitative social science study in research ethics linked to 2 studies on drug trial in pregnant women, designed to better understand the ethics of research with vulnerable population in context. This presentation will focus on an important social, cultural, and ethical theme that emerged in our findings, the concept of Arr-nar or Krengjai, and explore implications for research ethics practice. Other results are reported by Krengjai in the symposium in their own voices, researchers and participants' experiences of vulnerability and agency in global health research. The aim of our study was to understand and explore the following and mainly focuses on vulnerability and agency. We want to know what participants are vulnerable to specifically in their daily lives and in the research encounter. What are their abilities, capabilities, and choices? How do participants perceive their own vulnerabilities? How could research inadvertently make them more vulnerable? And what are the real and perceived benefits of participating in research? Our study site is at the border town called Napat, located on Thai-Myanmar border. This is where Shoglo Malaria Research Unit, or SMRU, is based. Here they conduct health research and provide care and treatments at their border clinics. Napat is a special economic zone, the main gateway of East-West Economic Corridor, a main border crossing point, and a destination for economic migrants. The economies on both sides of the border are growing rapidly with foreign investment. There is significant ethnic diversity of border and cross-border population, which include Karen, Burmese, Hmong, and others. Most migrants are employed in the agriculture sectors, construction sector, and clothing industries. The majority of migrant workers in this area are daily wage workers and casual laborers. This means that they do not have regular income and they are underpaid. Disease burdens in this area are infectious diseases, malnutrition, anemia, malaria, tuberculosis, and other seasonal diseases. Most migrant children do not have access to vaccine, especially for the older children that are accompanying their parents to Thailand. As for newborn, they may receive vaccines, but may have lost follow-up when their parents move to work in other places. We interviewed participants from 2 clinical studies, and they were pregnant at the time they participated in these 2 linked studies. These women first came to SMRU clinics for antenatal care and found that they got malaria or hepatitis B and were invited to join one of the linked studies. And also, SMRU has been conducting research in parallel with providing free quality treatments. At SMRU, staff speak same languages as participants or patients, and some of the staff come from the same community where patients and participants come from. Not only known as a research unit with focus on malaria research, SMRU is also known as a pregnant women's clinic amongst community on the border. The 2 linked clinical studies are as follows. First, DMA. This study started in 2009 and ended in 2018. Second is TDF, started in 2017 and still ongoing with quite low recruitment rate. For both studies, everyone gets antenatal care service, ancillary care, and children get standard vaccinations. But pregnant women with hepatitis B only get TDF prevention from mother-to-child transmission when they participate. We employed qualitative research method and conducted 32 in-depth interviews and 10 focus group discussions with 4 groups of participants. Regular reflections were held between our team, with special attention to cross-cultural meaning. And we have manual coding during and after data collection. Double coding with NMUO was also adopted to reduce bias in our analysis of findings. This table shows the breakdown of participants we've interviewed from each group. As mentioned, this study aimed to understand vulnerability in research in specific social, cultural, and political contexts, research-specific burdens, and ethical and practical challenges that participants and researchers or frontline healthcare workers encounter in order to better design ethically responsible research. Across our data, there was a strong theme that emerged reflecting a pervasive cultural moral value in this region, with important implications for ethical participation in research. The concept is Krengjai in Thai and Arr-nar in Burmese. Arr-nar or Krengjai is a complex cultural moral concept that roughly translates in English to norms and practices surrounding guilt, gratitude, and reciprocity. This concept is a moral value upheld by people living in this region, regardless of educational background or social status. It is the way of life for which people depend on each other, whether they are blood related or not. This moral value is taught to children at home and in school and reflects one's nobility and graciousness when upholding this moral value. This theme came out strongly from our data collection from both participants and researchers' side and echo the work of Wyatt and Promkandon as described here. This figure demonstrates the multiple meanings of Arr-nar or Krengjai in the upper box, collected from various literatures including discourse analysis on this concept. It is important to note that the concept carries both positive and negative meanings and often switches between these. To illustrate, let's take the word respect. On the positive side, it is sincere respectfulness toward another person who deserves to be respected. On the negative side, it may be respectfulness as difference, which carries the feeling of fear with it, often including differences in power dynamics. The boxes below show how various meanings of Arr-nar and Krengjai arose in our collected data, with researchers on the left and participants on the right, with common felt obligations in the middle. Our team has created a visual to help convey these various meanings of this rich concept. I will now discuss the ways that Arr-nar or Krengjai influenced the recruitment and consent encounter between participants and researchers in our research ethics study. So, how did Krengjai potentially influence reasons for participating? What are the reasons for these participants to participate in research? While participants or patients recognize the dedication of frontline healthcare workers and doctors that are doing research in parallel with providing care to them, they also perceive or anticipate health benefits if they participated in research as ways to access care. Another main reason for choosing to participate in research is to protect their unborn children. They put forth the safety and well-being of their children before their own. It is important to know that all patients and participants understand that they have a choice to not participate in research while still receive the same treatment. Then there is this sense of being selfless and acting for the greater good, which is also part of being Arr-nar or Kreng-jai. Many participants expressed that they decided to take part in this study to benefit others. They feel that the study will not only benefit them, but also other women in different areas in the future. As mentioned earlier, that SMRU has been conducting research and providing care alongside at its clinics in this area for more than 30 years. Many participants felt Arr-nar or Kreng-jai toward the institute and staff for health benefits they have gained over the years. Participants do not perceive any harms in taking part in research because staff providing care and carrying out research are the same staff and the same institute. Additionally, reciprocity and gratitude not only demonstrated by research participants, frontline healthcare workers and researchers also express their gratitude toward participants' commitment throughout the study. The acts of giving quality care, making themselves available whenever needed, and pay attention to participants are ways frontline healthcare workers and researchers or doctors reciprocate and express their appreciation toward participants. However, some participants feel guilty when they fail to fulfill their commitment, for example, when missing or not able to show up for scheduled appointments. Participants going great lengths to return for each study follow-up appointment, and this shows how committed they are toward the study and the institute. This feeling also comes with a feeling of respect, which is one of the feelings of Arr-nar and Krengjai, especially toward researchers and frontline healthcare workers. Participants perceive healthcare benefits when attending appointments as being informed of their health status and of their children. Most participants in this area are illiterate. This raises concerns about their understanding in research. The participant information sheet and informed consent form are usually 4 to 5 pages long when translated. And even with verbal explanation, some of the terminologies are technical and scientific and not familiar to them. This creates some ethical question whether participants fully understand. With ethical requirements, it requires that researchers and study make sure participants understand about the research. But this is questionable to how much do participants need to understand, and what more does the study team needs to do to make sure they understand, to fulfill their ethical obligation. When participants cannot understand fully, does it mean that their consent is not voluntary and informed? This exchange demonstrates how researchers struggle with this ethical obligation in this setting. So, when participants are feeling Arr-nar or Kreng-jai toward researchers and frontline healthcare workers, can they really say no when they were approached to join studies? How easy or difficult for them to make such decisions? And if they are to refuse, how does it look like in the culture of Arr-nar or Kreng-jai? In this instance, this participant was approached by a staff asking if she would be interested to join another study. She was overwhelmed by the amount of medicine she would have to take, and instead of directly refusing, she used an excuse to not join the study. This kind of refusal is to avoid upsetting others, which in this case a study staff who is also a health worker. Research participants understand the regularity and importance to return for follow-up when they decided to join study. They always try to come back for appointments even if it could mean an absence from work, losing a day of income, and having to wake up extra early to spend hours traveling to the clinic. These challenges or seasonal challenge do not undermine their commitment to what a study they have joined. And by showing up for their appointments, it is how they express their moral value of Arr-nar or Krengjai toward researchers and frontline healthcare workers who are waiting for them at each appointment. I will now discuss the ways that Arr-nar Krengjai influence the recruitment and consent encounter between participants and researchers. In this instance, researchers expressed during focus group discussion that they are feeling guilty from what they have gained from a research study, which include career advancement, and they feel that participants are not compensated fairly. Even with attempts to balance humanitarian services and researchers, the feeling of guilt is an ongoing daily struggle that researchers face and wrestle with, and this also creates moral distress for them. Part of this guilt partially due to the fact that they understand and aware of the gaps in accessing to care and hardships participants and patients in these settings are enduring. However, it is also guilt that drive them to be more dedicated and committed to provide care and improve care for people in this population. Also, some participants refuse to claim for reimbursements because they feel that they already compensated enough or compensated fairly in the form of care. Majority of migrants living in this area are undocumented and do not have access to basic health care, and also struggle to pay for treatments when needed. For this very reason, SMRU tries to address this gap by providing care to give back to the community and attempts to reduce this structural gap. While research is funded and humanitarian services are not, researchers who are also doctors often face difficult clinical decisions. Healthcare gaps remains at large for this population, with insufficient intervention or no funding to support. SMRU Clinics has been known to community along this border area for its free quality services, has been appreciated and accessed by people living in this area in the past decades. Now let's look at discussions. Has gratitude or indebtedness interfered with meaningful informed consent? If consent includes a deep desire to return a favor, guilt of researchers versus gratitude of participants. But Kreng-jai does not mean they cannot refuse. Researchers should be aware of Krengjai in order to get voluntary consent. How much do participants need to understand when giving consent or when participating in research? How to better address participants' ability and limitations to understand. At this site, clinical services and humanitarian assistance has been offered alongside research to respond to vulnerabilities in the migrant community. Researchers feel it is important to give back and feel distressed if research is a burden on migrants who already lead challenging lives. However, does this institutional commitment to give back to the community and those most in need create challenges for voluntary research participation in a culture where gratitude runs deep? We thank all participants and researchers for their time and their participation in this study, and we thank Wellcome Trust for funding our study.